from me going on all day. But with that, there's been a slight change in the program. So our first two speakers are wonderful nurses from Northland who have come here to share their experiences in cancer care coordination, I believe. I hope I got that right, and they'll correct me in a second. So I'm going to stop. Sorry. For me on the screen? Yeah. Oh. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to leave that slider going so you can keep contributing to it. And I'm going to figure out how to get this to work. Stop sharing. That one, isn't it? Tatou ki te waka ne. Wow. Okay. All got online? Okay, so thank you very much for joining our Matariki series and starting this next afternoon session on. I'm going to leave it to you to tell the story. Kia ora.
Yeah, that's the camera there.
Oh, okay. Radio. Anyway. Kia ora koutou, ko waio, ko airena tuku tūpuna. E tipu aki a hau ki kai taia, e noho ana i tonu i konei. Ko Rachel Thompson, ni Steve tuku ingoa. Kia ora koutou, kia ora koutou, kia ora tātou katoa. Just before I let Gabby introduce herself, please note her highly professional standards and her extensive clinical experience and lots of other stuff negate her accent.
She just had to put that in because I'm Aussie, so Kia ora koutou, ko Gabby Neho toko ingoa, ko clinical nurse for Kaitaia Hospital. Kia ora. We're very excited to present our lovely little oncology clinic to you. And we weren't given a lot of time to prepare, so bear with us.
Do our best. Yeah. So I am the clinical nurse manager of Kaitaia Hospital, and for the last 6 months I've actually been working in Bay of Islands Hospital. I was on a secondment, and it was to try and facilitate the onboarding of the oncology clinic there. So a bit more about that later. Tātou ki te waka oranga is the name we were gifted by our takawainga for our oncology clinic at Kaitaia Hospital. So our story began back in 2016 when the team from the Jim Carney Centre, which is oncology in Whangarei, came up to us and talked about the fact that we could do with a satellite clinic in the far north. Now, this was due to several factors. Geography, like the distance from Kaitaia to Whangarei was a good 2 hours then. It's even further now with Mangamuka Gorge being State Highway 1 being closed for a long time. We wanted to address also equity, and due to the high unemployment, low income, poor roading, low specialist services available there. So the Northland catchment population is approximately 190,000, and the total catchment service that Kaitaia Hospital serves to is 28,000. Of that, 52% are Māori, which is a lot higher than the national average. The far north has the lowest income and highest unemployment rate in Northland, and that is comparing it to Whangarei and Kaipara. As I said, State Highway 1 being closed, and we get these random people helping us with like things such as unimogs when there's a flood. So we get a unimog to transfer our patients, but you know, a unimog's pretty cold and no medical equipment in it. So, you know, people try, but we deal with what we have. So there was barriers and challenges, obviously, to putting making this unit happen. So the biggest one for us was what treatments we could provide due to the logistics of travelling. The treatment has to come from Auckland. It has to go to Whangarei and be processed by the oncologist, the oncology pharmacist, and then sent to Kaitaia. And during that whole time, some of the stuff has to follow the cold chain. There was education of staff. So our staff in rural hospitals do anything and everything. Not only did you have to train the staff to do oncology administration, you had to just down to the basics. Think about stuff like the nurse that was on in the afternoon that would be there when the truck came with the chemotherapy, and some chemo needs refrigerating, some doesn't. And the impact of when we get it wrong is huge, and we have got it wrong, I tell you. Real estate, we were doing more with no more. We didn't get any staffing. We didn't get any extra nurses to do this stuff. We didn't get any space to do this stuff. So we looked at the numbers, and our pediatric ward down the end Friday was the day where we were basically getting no patients. So we're like, right, let's put the little ferries in there at night and take the beds out and put chairs in, and it'll be an oncology clinic the next morning. So that was all good, but you know, for some staff that have been there forever, that was not, you can't do that. That's a pediatric room. So there was just changing mindsets of people. There was the lack of uptake of service delivery options, so telehealth. We had a lot of that being a rural hospital, but the unit down in Whangarei didn't use it as much as us. So we were like, come on, let's use this. And so there's a bit of that stuff as well. Also, no oncologist on site was, impacted what we could do as well. We also came from two very different units. Now, this could be a little bit controversial, but it is my chance to give a shout out to rural hospital nurses. So our team are amazing. They do anything and everything. And I know for sure there's one person in this crowd that knows about that. So you could be looking after, one day on a Thursday, you'd be looking after a pediatric patient with bronchiolitis, a post-op patient with hip replacement, and a palliative patient who's on te ara whakapiri, and they are going on their last journey, and you're supporting the whānau, you're doing all that stuff. Then you rock up to work on Friday and you don the purple gown and you're a chemo nurse. So I often say there was this bit of an angst about who would we train and who would be our chemo nurses. I'm just like, you could take any of our nurses out of a hospital and stick them in any unit in a big hospital, and they will be of value. Rural hospital nurses are amazing. So there was trying to get that vibe across. As I said, real estate, COVID, if we could just, go down to that other, COVID was a big, no, it's right, actually. COVID was an impact. We had to move, these guys moved, they were in the pediatric room, and then that had to shut down ISO for our COVID patients. So they were up in day stay surgery then became our COVID area. So they were out of there again. They were back down on the ward. And then we went back down there, so they got shoved out again. So they went up to bowel screening. So they've been all around the hospital, but they just pack up their stuff and off they go. So very flexible, and also very courteous of patients during these times. This was our plan for setting up our oncology unit. And I don't know about you, but I don't know anyone in their right mind that would ever even want to look at this plan, let alone work through it. So along come the Annette Beckers of the world, who puts this stuff together and works to it meticulously. And to be honest, I don't really know what's on any of this apart from that orange box up there, which was our opening day. And I don't know how, but all that other stuff got done and we opened on that day. So they're not for me, but everyone needs an Annette Becker. So our timeline started in 2017. We opened in June. We had we've talked about that stuff pretty much. This was our opening day. This is out the front of the unit, and again, a beautiful picture donated. This is the team. There's the Whangarei team there as well as Kaitaia. As you can see, I have great time management skills, and if there's going to be cameras and big fanfare. And I have good warning of that. I can arrange to not be there on the day. So yes, I am missing, but I was working there at the time. So proud moment. Monthly treatments since we commenced. So we started very slowly. We had one person in the first year. And then we went up gradually as well. Along came COVID and everybody was so excited to just get out. They all turned up for their treatments. And but we also were suddenly allowed to do lots of treatments because they couldn't get to Whangarei couldn't do it. So we had this big opening where it was really exciting. We could do all sorts of stuff. But you can see after that, we level out. So there's lots of reasons for that. But sometimes it doesn't look much. Sometimes we're really, really busy and sometimes we're quiet. So that's how it rolls. This is just a quick picture. Our patients come from mid-north up. Our staffing model is what they called a hub and spoke. So Jim Carney Centre, the Whangarei Centre, is in the middle of it. And out there is operations manager, myself, our 6 cyto-trained nurses, our ward clerk, our 1 Cancer Society volunteer, and our clinicians who support us in the hospital. And yeah, I'll hand over to Gabby.
Thanks. So education-wise for our nurses involved initial training at the Jim Carney Centre in Whangarei. So we travelled down to Whangarei and spent a number of weeks at the unit, gathering our knowledge of their systems, their paperwork, etc. We got signed off for our ADAC competencies, which is the chemo administration competencies, and we've maintained yearly competency sign-offs as we go through. In addition to this, we've implemented EviQ, which is our education resources online. We also implemented the closed infusion systems for our chemotherapy, which greatly enhanced the safety for our nurses. And the most recent addition is our Roro system, which is an online prescribing and administration system, which has been really amazing, and it's reduced a lot of the administrative burden between the two clinics. So this is a little picture of one of our education sessions that we had virtually with Whangarei, and a lot of these sessions we did out of hours. Our treatments, as you can see, in 2017, we just commenced with trastuzumab and bortezomib, and that has now grown to over 22 different treatments, with the non-chemo regimes being of greater at the moment. So the way we've set up our clinic is we run 2 days. On a Thursday is our infusions and our port flushes. And on a Friday, we stick to just delivering chemotherapy on a Friday just to ensure that we've got the staffing with the chemo skills. So these are some pictures of celebrating our 1 year. It was a nice achievement to celebrate. The patient in the photo was our first patient that received chemotherapy with us, and she cut our cake. And after a long gap of not having treatment, this patient is now back with us having some treatment again. So it's been lovely to see her again. So this is just some pictures of our little 4-bedroom space that we've converted. So you can see we've got our chairs. In this space, we have our trolleys and our pumps and OBS machines. The picture in the top right-hand corner is all of our clinical gear that's all kept in trolleys. And this is just to show how mobile our clinic is. And this is us in action with a patient permission to take this photo. The space does work. Okay, so we just wanted to share with you a quick patient story. So patient's been renamed as Cindy. She is a 45-year-old female with right-sided breast cancer. Her and her husband owned a successful local business, and when we first initially saw her, She had 3 children aged 11, 10, and 7 years. So imagine for a moment that you're a busy, healthy, and active mum of 3 children, immersed in life, running a successful local business, managing a household and ferrying kids here and there, making sure everyone's needs are met. And suddenly you're blindsided by an aggressive but curable breast cancer diagnosis, while facing your own mortality, as well as watching your loved ones coping with whatever this reality meant to them. This was the start of Cindy's cancer journey. After spending so much time traveling for scans, chemo, surgery, and radiation, Cindy was so relieved when we told her that she could have 18 sessions of her chemo with us in her hometown. Cindy pointed out, however, that the transition between the public and the private system was difficult and lonely at times, as there was no one to help support and navigate this with her. We were able to support Cindy by maintaining somewhat normal routine for her, by providing a lot of flexibility for her clinic appointments, and this was important for Cindy. Sadly, though, for Cindy and her whānau, towards the end of her treatment, her husband was diagnosed with an untreatable stage 4 adenocarcinoma. He was also a fit and healthy person, and this was only picked up by a concerned physio who was not able to relieve some hip pain. After some symptomatic radiation treatment, the only other option was an unfunded treatment called pembrolizumab. Pembrolizumab is one of our most common treatments that we can deliver, but unfortunately, because it was unfunded for this cancer, we could not deliver it. And for reasons each and every one of us as nurses struggle with, we couldn't give this to Cindy's husband, and it was delivered in the private clinic. And unfortunately, this is a common occurrence, and it never gets easier for us staff to explain this to our patients. Cindy's husband sadly passed away after 18 months after his diagnosis, and however, Cindy remains cancer-free, and her 3 children have grown into lovely teenagers.
Thanks, Gabby, for that. So running out of time now, just want to quickly close with, as I said, I've been in Bay of Islands trying to get this beautiful oncology department up and running. Paparata is the building in which the oncology unit sits, 5 chairs, beautiful open plan. And just 2 weeks ago, our decision paper got declined by Te Whatuora to staff the unit. So these are the challenges we have in rural hospitals. So frustrating, beautiful unit. And in Kaitaia, we are just putting a decision paper now through for 1 full-time nurse to run our clinics after 7 years. That's, you'd think it's not much, but these are the struggles we continue to have. But this is why we're really grateful to get out and be able to talk about our special places. We'll do whatever we can for our communities. Thank you. So unfortunately, we do have to shoot off and catch a plane now. It's been one heck of a week this week.
Do you have time for one quick question?
Oh yeah, sure.
It's a great one from Sasha on Zoom. Asked, so if another place was trying to set up their own clinic, based on your experiences, what's one thing that you think that they should definitely prioritize or do that you possibly learned from this experience?
Make sure you get staffing.
Staffing.
You've got to get the funding. You've got to get that stuff. What was interesting when we look at both of our papers was there was no allowance for funding for staffing and no allowance for funding for pharmacy, and Kaitaia's pharmacy bill is through the roof with the oncology and the infusion medications, which still isn't factored into the. So we've clued onto that one now.
Yeah.
But get it. But we do continue to keep doing more with no more. But at some stage it's unsustainable.
We get more.
Yeah,
More
yeah.
stuff.
Well, that would be
That's
awesome.
it. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for giving up your time to travel and coming and talk to us and sharing that story. I've been to Kaitai and seen that unit and I've always wondered how big that unit is and how it runs. So you've answered a lot of those questions and hopefully put the challenge down for some of us to see how we can find a way to help you. Small taonga, he rawa o hati nei kia koutou. You can decide which one you want if you want to on the plane. And thank you very much. And thank you for all of your work. I have whakapapa to whangapia, which is just on Kaitai. So I just want to say thank you for looking after our whānau up there.
Lovely. You're welcome. Kia ora.
Thank you.
Right. Our next speaker, which one's that one? Sorry. Oh, Whiri. That one? Yes, of course it is. Duh. Okay, so we do you will figure that out. Okay, wait. We need to get Maihui on the link. Okay, well, our next speaker, fabulous cancer model of care. Myra Ruka is going to talk about a cancer. Sorry, the whole team. Sorry, Amy Jones, Myra Ruka, Nina, and Deanne. Right, sorry. Oh yeah, I'm terrible. I'm getting worse. No, fine. I'm going to stop and let you guys talk about Whiri because it's a great program. We've heard about it before, but we're looking forward to hearing about how it's possibly progressed a little bit more. Kia koutou.
Kia ora. Kia ora e whai. Well, nera te mihi kia koutou katoa e ngā rangatirama kei konei ki roto i te ruma, tēnā koutou. Ngā whānau ko tai mai kei runga i te rorahiko, tēnā koutou katoa. The screen I'm looking at is black and then there's me, but there's a team standing behind me. So I want everyone just to come in and step into the mic and you might show up on the...
Kia ora. Oh, she's got other video. That's okay.
Okay, all right. So we'll just quickly go and introduce ourselves.
Oh, kia ora. Ko Deanne ki ngā hau. Ko Taranaki ko ngā ruahine nā iwi.
Kia ora koutou, ko Amy Jones, taka ingoa no pōne ki hau. Mai te whataora Waikato.
Kia ora, Nina Scott, ngai te whātua ngā puhimi Waikato.
Hi, and here o ngō ngāpuhi me raukawa. And so today we had 6 minutes and I feel like we've actually carved out maybe a few more minutes if someone can't get online, but we will try and fly through this. We really just wanted to present and update everyone around Whiri, which is a model of care that has been born out of necessity in Waikato. We started off, basically, there's a team behind the Whiri model of care who work in all different corners in health, both in research as well as in the clinical sphere. And this model of care has been designed over the last 4 years. It has multiple iterations, and Cancer Whiri is just one of those iterations. And we're really excited about it because A, that's an area that I work in, but B, it's an area that we've had the most opportunity to really amplify whānau voice and translate that into the ongoing design of our model of care. So we're moving.
That's right. We'll just
move this. So I'm just going to hand over to Nina here just to talk about.
No,
but
I'm going to go back.
Okay.
Well rehearsed.
How do we go back that way?
We don't need to go back. We'll just say this is our project.
Okay. Anyway.
Yeah.
So we started off with Cancer Whiri 1, and so basically, all we wanted to do was see a rāranga net to start superimposing into and integrating into the cancer services that we saw at Waikato Hospital. And what that rāranga net was supposed to do is to reflect our whānau, but also to catch all the gaps that were occurring along that pathway where all the inequities were occurring as well. And so we had data. We knew where the gaps were lying. And we did multiple note reviews and looked at whānau journey throughout the time of COVID. So we looked at a period during the COVID lockdowns and what was that experience like for whānau that were being diagnosed with cancer. Where were some of the gaps that were being amplified as a result of the COVID lockdowns. And then we looked at another cohort of patients who experienced cancer diagnosis and treatment once things had settled down back in 2022. And so we had all this clinical note data, and then the next phase was to really take the lessons learned from that. And then we did interviews. We interviewed those whānau who traversed the hospital services during that time. And then the next phase was to take that kōrero, bring it into our co-design forum. And do you want to talk to?
Okay, and so basically we wanted to fix up the messy cancer care system and redesign a system that would work for whānau Māori. And so we did that with whānau who had been through the cancer journey, and we used all the information that Myra just explained to us. And we had co-design sessions, and that photo down on the bottom right is a session that we had, not yesterday, but the day before, with our co-design whānau. And yeah, we wanted to get to that point where we felt as though whānau were taking over and telling us what to do. And we got to that point multiple times, which is very good. So we have this. This is a messy picture, but it tells you about the values and the goals of that new system that we've designed. No, that's fine. And then we did a pilot with our new cancer care system that works for whānau Māori. And I'm hoping that our next pilot will have our next one will have a really strong focus on whānau Haua. So a really good benchmark, whānau Haua Māori. So we had Helena as our kaiwhiri navigator and Ash as the nurse supporting whānau through our cancer care pathway, which we've just finished doing. Shall I hand over to Amy? Sure.
So our team is our navigator, Helena and Deanne got to be our navigator as well, supported by Ash, and she was supported by Māori GPs as well. And the navigator conducted a whānau holder assessment, which is a holistic health and wellbeing screening tool to identify unmet need and then support any of those unmet needs identified. We also did, at the end of our engagement with patients, a patient experience survey over the phone. So this is just a pictorial of the whiri kind of program. It doesn't necessarily have to look this way, but it tended to look this way for our project. There was a referral that we came in, obviously, from GPs and acute patients at the hospital, referred for H-scan. Our nurse reviewed the notes, and then they were followed up with a whā by the kaiwhiri. And then a referral to lots of services, or the nurse did all her amazing magic stuff. So this is kind of a journey. Oh, I didn't touch anything. That's kind of what the journey looks like for most kind of whiri models, and we have projects in a number of spaces.
Yeah, so that cancer whiri one was from referral into the hospital system with a potential diagnosis of cancer up to first treatment.
Yeah, start of treatment.
Up to start of treatment. And then we're going to continue with cancer whiri 2 up through and including treatment.
So just to go back to that process again. So the key point here is that there's lots of models of care out there that are holistic in this way, and they're doing fantastic work. And you know, a lot of the models, the aim is to really try and streamline that journey for whānau, and to try and make them feel the manaaki that you should feel once everything's untangled, once you walk into the hospital services. So that's similar. I think the point of difference with the whiri model of care is that there's integrated clinical teams, and so you have the teams can be led by a CNS. And we have clinical hubs. So all patients are discussed at a clinical hub between the whānau hauora navigators and the clinical nurse specialist and the GP, who's also linked in with the team. What we found in our other FIDI models is that it is a cost-effective model. Once we get it right from the beginning, and we have that trust and engagement with the teams and the relationships and with all the specialties, then the pathway becomes a lot clearer for patients and their whānau, and there's a really clear point of contact for support as well for that whānau unit. So this is a process, but it can look different depending on the need. Another thing that we really wanted to look at is proactive addressing proactively comorbidities at early point of contact with patients into the referral system. And so, but what we found, you know, like we thought it was the perfect solution. We were just going to put our clinical team in there and start zhuzhing our patients up and supporting them the best way we could. But we've realised that there's process sort of clunkiness in there. And so with all the best intentions, we have to come back and review it. And that's the point of this research actually, is just to test it and see if it works. If it doesn't, then we have to find another way.
Is it me again? Yeah, so we've finished our pilot. We didn't quite reach our 50, but we did support 33 patients. The majority of them ended up with a non-cancer diagnosis, right? Yeah. And some of the issues and things that were supported in the FAR by the navigator tended to be transport and to appointments. Health literacy was really popular in the tool. There was a number of referrals to our FIDI nurse for mental health support, and rongoā was really popular. And that's just a couple of quotes from our patient experience surveys who really enjoyed it and learned a lot and felt supported.
I think another thing as well is just back to that last slide is integration of knowledge transfer. So not only did we, you know, like they were provided sort of like wānanga sessions with patients and their whānau just to show them what the roadmap's going to look like for their journey or of diagnosis, because often they hadn't been diagnosed yet. But also it was about linking back in with the cancer service and speaking with the ops manager and speaking with the service and feeding back some of the feedback that we're getting, active feedback from patients to inform their service. So as a result of that, the service we're looking at feedback. So how patients can give feedback, timely feedback without fear of compromising the quality of care that they were going to receive. Like how do they give safe feedback and safe critical feedback to save that relationship. And so that was another incredibly important output or outcome from the integrated knowledge transfer sort of like approach that we took.
That first part of the cancer care pathway is really important. So when you get referred by your GP to the hospital to see a doctor about whether you got cancer or not, that's where massive delays happen. And those delays are enough to influence your chances of surviving your cancer. And that's why we started there. We wanted to do the whole pathway. Thought we're going to do this first and we're going to do it well. Then we'll do treatment. So we've done that first part well. And even though, you know, most patients who are referred for an investigation for cancer won't end up having cancer, our ultimate goal is hauora gain for whānau Māori. So we are going to have a whole lot of hauora gain for those people who don't end up with a diagnosis of cancer, because we're going to make sure that they have access to cancer screening. The goal was to ensure that their whānau are all up to date with cancer screening as well. We still need to work on techniques for doing that, because what we thought would work didn't actually work, and that's why research is good. You can't just go, oh, this will work, and then do it without monitoring. So yeah, so that's why we focused on that part of it. And we've been given a few minutes because our next speaker can't get the link. Is that right? Yeah. Okay, keep going. There was a lot of intensive support needed for some whānau from Ash, our nurse. And we thought, well, I thought, probably you guys didn't think that when Helena, so oh, sorry, previous. When Helena, who was our first navigator and is still with us, became too unwell with her own cancer journey to continue to do the navigation. I thought, well, Helena can just do it because she's a nurse, right? But no, it was, I mean, Ash, I thought Ash could, as the nurse, could take over the navigation, but no, it was, Ash was very clear. Now that my lane's nursing, you need to find someone to do the navigating. So that's where Deanne,
So it was too much.
yeah, it was too much. It was a lot of, a lot of time. You had to spend a lot of time with phone away. Do you want to talk to any of this?
Go on,
This?
Kate.
Oh,
No,
Kia ora.
on what you had to do.
yeah.
Yeah.
So takes a lot of time, the engagement phase with whānau, getting hold of them on the phone and then organising, coordinating the appointments to do the whānau hauora assessment. So that can be quite a time consuming. Some people are great at responding to messages or answering their phone, but for others it did take a lot of talking and things like that. But
And you did all of them in person, right?
yeah, so we did in all of them in person. I think only maybe 2 were done via Teams.
At
So
at their house.
yeah, at their house, or they would come into a place that they felt comfortable, whether it was meeting them at the hospital or something like that.
We need to wrap it up, guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
You need to go.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay. I'm the fastest one. So, Cancer Fitty 2 is about, you know,
The next project.
the next project is about extending the pathway into and including treatment and translating from one region to another. So we've got to figure out how to pick Fitty up and put it somewhere else. So we're going to take it from Hamilton into Auckland. So there's, you know, that translation kind of thing as well.
And so already with Fitty, the model of care, Waikato, we've been able to take it from the hospital setting,
Yeah.
it's in the community,
Yeah.
and it's going out to Hauraki now. So it is, the model of care is really agile, and we've set up like operating, you know, like toolkits so that it can be easily implemented in different regions, but it has to be taken up by that region, and that whānau voice within that region has to come through as well. So
Yeah,
kia ora.
we cracked the numbers the other day, and there have been, I think, how many thousand? 10,000. We've had 10,000 whānau through Fitty so far since we started in 2021.
2020.
2020, there you go. So we're doing good, and we're just cracking on.
So one more thing just before we finish, is that what we really want to focus in on now is really anchoring the model of care in mātauranga Māori. And so we feel it, well, like that's how we work, but actually we needed to be more explicit about how the model of care is actually integrating taha wairua, taha hinengaro, te taiao, and how we're putting those sciences and healing sciences into the model of care. And so now there's going to be a specific piece of work looking at mātauranga, and we'll have a mātauranga pai and then integrate that into the model moving forward. So kia ora.
Kia ora.
We're having a little trouble getting our next speaker online. So if it's okay, we might move on to the next group until Moahuia can join us. Hopefully that gets resolved. So Alexis, no? Oh yeah, kia ora. Okay, awesome. Oh, sorry, yeah, Cameron. Aye. Okay, so yeah, look, I'm gonna get your kōrero up. Which one was that one? Do you have a talk? What is it?
Wait, which
Sorry.
one is it? Sorry.
No, it's not none of those ones
Oh,
as
that
far
one.
as I could see.
That one.
Is it that one? No, that's another one.
How did you?
By email.
Oh, by email. Who did you email to? Okay.
Okay.
Did you send it to me? What's the name? Sorry, I'm so sorry, you guys. Sorry. Do you know what it's called?
Yeah.
Oh, it's all there.
John?
Read out some of the
Sorry.
things that are coming up, the videos that I'm sharing that have come through on some people go through at Matariki. Obviously, we've got lots of people who haven't done this before. Sorry, some of you haven't done Matariki, some of you are learning through your kids, which is awesome. That's awesome. In fact, kids are probably the easiest way. Placing go to school, all that, always doing really cool Matariki events. So go along to those. Learn, they're awesome. Getting up early and watching the National Hautapu ceremony, that was probably a highlight for me, that first year watching all of that. The first time I've ever seen such tikanga on live TV like that, which is kind of grappling with that a little bit in the head, but I thought that was fantastic. Some people have created star mobiles and put their moko names on there and then name their talents, which is kind of cool. Whānau wānanga comes up, taking the time to do whānau goal setting, again through kids. Some people have actually watched, one person watched the Hautapu ceremony and then thought it was so cool that they dragged the whole whānau out of bed the next year and took them over to join the Hautapu. I would strongly encourage you if you haven't been to a Hautapu is go along and do it, because there's usually a feed after that, but also the process is beautiful. So I will signal Ngāti Whānau's one coming up really, really soon. I'm trying to figure out if I can get my 3-year-old out of bed in a timely way to get there in time for that. That's probably going to be my challenge. How are we doing?
Really good. Getting there.
So yeah, so there's heaps of opportunities, eh? And I guess I'll throw mine in. We just get up early in the morning, get a pot, fill it up with water, get the kai from Waiti, Waita, Tipuana, Tipuana, so salt water, fresh water, earth, so vegetables, and then rangi, which can be birds, really. Get a little bit of that, put it into a pot. We boil the pot, put the lid on. I've got a barbecue with a gas burner on the end, so it's not as, I'd love to have a perfectly made proper traditional hautapu, but at the moment it's a gas burner on the end of the barbecue. Put the pot on there, boil it up, get it going, do your hautapu, and then when you're ready to whānau te whitu, just lift the lid, and then the steam goes up to the sky. Absolutely beautiful. Really cool. But yeah, I would love to one day build a proper one. Yeah. You guys ready? We good?
Yeah, right.
Not quite? Okay. How about you guys? Have you guys had a chance to do matariki?
Yes. Oh, I just wanted to talk to my. We done a hautapu ceremony on Monday morning.
Oh,
With the 9 whetū and then all our partners and directors centering in the middle and a few of our hiarewhiria whānau. So wrapping around them and it was awesome.
beautiful. All right. Looks like
We're there.
good.
Oh, hold
That's
on.
cool.
Sorry. It's just.
And I love that you get a Friday off. That's a nice bonus.
Yeah.
And you spend the whole day eating all the time and eating too much and just chilling and relaxing and
Eating again.
eating again. Yeah.
Oh. Mō taku he whānau.
No, no.
Oh, Rawe, thank you so much. Thank you. Oh. Tēnā tātou e te whare, ko ai au ko Karen Miku John tōku ingoa, he rea hau no te whakatohea me Ngāti Pākehā hoki. This is the model of care team. Hei rau, Alexis. Tēnā rā tātou katoa, ko Mahela Kaniva tōku ingoa, he irio hau no Ngāti Whātua, Ngāti Kahu me Niue hoki.
Kia ora, ko Alexis Cameron tōku ingoa, he uri hau no Ngāti Parau, me Ngāti Hāmoa, Aotasau mai Alapua I Apia. And I'm part of the modeler care team here to present today, but our main role is to be Karen's hype girl, so kia ora.
She's being humble. She's our lead. She's my boss. And also just want to acknowledge David and Myra and me koutou katoa. It's really cool to have the support in the room as part of our board. And yeah, so kia ora to you. So we are part of the Integrated Cancer Services Program with Te Tuka Tūmai, so the Regional Cancer and Blood Service. Sits kind of based at Auckland, and under that program, it aims to bring together the regional priority projects within cancer care, taking a mātauranga Māori approach. And we also want to make that integrated and seamless. I think we've heard that much today, across the non-surgical cancer pathway. We also have an aspiration to bring care closer to homes and make it a community-facing approach. So we're the model of care within that. This is one of the work streams, and we are developing, as I said, the model of care. I think, it's a transformative model, and that I suppose comes from mātauranga Māori. When it's led by a mātauranga Māori way of being, then patients and whānau are centred inherently right in the centre. So that is where that innovation kind of stems from. So the 5 po of the way that we've gone about developing that, which we'll talk a little bit through, is the attributes, site capability, clinical matrix, service distribution, and partnership and integration. And then in that centre is patient and whānau pathway and experience. We're doing this alongside the support of our relationships with community partners and all throughout that pathway, including, just to name a few, you can read them a little bit, the Pacific providers, iwi Māori community providers, prehabilitation, which we'll hear from, and supportive care and the like. Our lane is the non-surgical cancer care, but we know that we need to partner well because in order to have a seamless pathway, we need to be talking and integrating with right from prevention screening, early detection, all the way through to palliative care, supportive care, and survivorship. Kia ora. So attributes, the way we're going about it is we initially started with what is our current state, and just acknowledging that there is many systemic challenges, and we didn't have to look too far in terms of the literature. There is much that shares what the current environment is. And so our real guiding star has been the Rongohea Te Reo He Whātua Oranga report, which is Māori whānau experiences of cancer care. And so from that, we were able to look at, okay, what is the moimoia, what is our principles? And this came from the visionary himself, Matua Hori Laking, George Laking. He's a medical oncologist. And so we kind of describe ourselves as his hands and feet to the kaupapa. This is the moimoia. And then where we are now is describing that a little bit more in depth. If we were to describe the look and the feel of the future of cancer services within the northern region, that first leaf would be that growth element of upholding te tiriti. And then from there is that growth of all of these leaves that enable success, which is our attributes. And then this is where we are now. We're trying to depict what that would look like from our current, for patients and whānau, what their current experience of care is now, and looking forward to the future of if this model of care was implemented and working seamlessly, then these are some of the future experiences that we hope to achieve. We know that implementation is yet to come, and that is the full kind of maturity of the tree. So that's just depicted against the seed life cycle. Clinical matrix is just us methodically looking at what are the complexities in cancer care all across medical oncology, hematology, radiation oncology, and it helps to understand what the facilities and the infrastructure we need, and also the workforce elements, which I just want to mihi to Gabby and Rachel before, with their experience of having a building but no workforce to provide the care. So that's really important, and we need to be thinking about that now because change starts now and the pipelining starts now too. So then this will correlate to a 1 to 6 framework for site capability. 1 being you're closer to home, your care in the home, your low clinical risk, and 6 being your hospital specialist care where, we know that it's the right thing, the appropriate thing to have care in a central place. We're going through, so there's 187 chemotherapy regimens that make up 60% of our chair time throughout the northern region. we've done a bit of a scope in the literature to say what is being done overseas, both in home and in the community. And so just as an illustration, we've modelled that against some of our patient activity hours in counties Manukau. And what that suggests is that 5% of future care could be done as home-based care, whether that's oral medication or low-risk chemotherapy, and 40% can be done in the community, and 55% has to be done in the hospital setting, because that is where it's safest to do so.
Kia ora. It's funny, this is my one slide, and really that's just to give Kieran a bit of a breather. But whānau, in terms of creating a site capability framework, which will serve as a theoretical underpinning of the sites. So if you're thinking about going out into the community and creating more sites, having a theoretical underpinning in terms of understanding what level site that is, this will be the framework, and this is kind of how we're pulling this together. And so again, 1 to 6 kind of capability, and that's after that kind of clinical matrix that lets us be a bit more methodical about how we are determining that cancer care complexity, and then kind of putting that up against a matrix like this that lets us be more deliberate and intentional about how we're setting up our sites and how many of those sites to serve our communities that we need. And that will have implications for workforce in terms of utilising our workforce and what roles are really required in order to mitigate those clinical risks at those different sites. And so draft in terms of just, what does kind of it start to look like, 1 to 6. We've done a bit of an environmental scan, 2 frameworks in Australia and a role delineation model here in New Zealand. We've amalgamated that, and we're just in the process of taking that out to subject matter experts, because it is for them to decide what does a level 1 medical oncology service look like. As you can expect, radiation oncology starts at level 5, but actually it's got our RAD-onc mates thinking about, well, what kind of services can we provide in those lower tier, the lower, that 1 to 4 kind of levels. And so as we, I guess, build out that site capability framework, and what does that look like across, your service description requirements, your workforce requirements, your specific risk considerations, and support services. And then also we know that we need to be deliberate and intentional about our hauora hub requirements, rongoa Māori, role of the whānau, and palliative and supportive care. And so I guess we just really, what does it look like to provide that type of, well, those services, or what can make up our level, our different types of services. Because at the moment in Auckland in particular, when we are doing LDO, local delivery of oncology, we are replicating level 5 sites. And again, that just has implication on the workforce requirement. So if we actually get a bit more sophisticated about how we really are breaking it down, then I think there's a way that we can find more efficiencies.
In a moment, we'll have an illustration of what our aspirations are, but it's really to say that in the hospital based centres, what we know is that there's inconsistency of care. If you present to ED up in the far north, you won't receive care from a medical oncologist specialist. When you come to Auckland, that's the only place that there would be that care. So we want to make sure that that is consistent across the region and there's no access barriers. And for community-based sites, we also want to kind of look at the region and say, where are they best placed out in the community? And that is both for infusion chairs and also for clinic spaces as well. And then there is an aspiration to have mobile-based units, and obviously that needs to, that's aspiration, as well as home-based care, which also includes hospital in the home as well. So then if we kind of map this against, this is Northland, this connects with the 1 to 6 framework, and we've begun kind of mapping out where our community providers are first and foremost. So some of the red little pinpoints is our imu Māori providers that we have relationships with, who we've begun talking about what this future could look like and how we could utilise some of their spaces and uplift their capability to perhaps a 2 or 3 site. And so this is just showing that we have done some forecasting modelling that looks at the last 8 years of data to forecast the next 10 years. And this is the need that we have in the next 10 years. So clinics wise, going from 30 to 36. And then we've mapped this over with our patient activity, actual hours. So this is where our patients live, where they are in the community, so that we know that we've got iwi Māori providers where our patients live, they know them. And so we just need to kind of strengthen those relationships. Well done. This is the modelling for Auckland metro region, and this is for medical oncology. So again, so for the northern region, we know that currently we provide 66 infusion chairs 5 days a week, and in the future that will need to raise to 84, and likewise with clinics. And that is building in as well the forecasted unmet need of about 15%. Partnership and integration, this is just to say that we can't do it without everybody. This is probably a good time to mention that we come from an HR background, and yeah, so you know, we can't do it without the experts and these people. So this is just from our hui up in Te Tai Tokerau a month or so back, and Tamaki Makaurau just last week. Kia ora.
Kia ora te whare, this is the Ngākau piece. So this is the final poem. We were lovingly invited to spend the day with a beautiful whānau at Taupiri Maunga, and I guess initially we weren't sure of how the day would look, but we had our consumer lead, Liz Manley, and our visionary, Dr. Hori Laking, attend with us just to make sure that we were a te whono to the kaupapa. And so our kaumātua led us in karakia down by Waikato Awa, and then another karakia before we entered the urupa. So this is typically your consumer focus group, and we didn't want to name it that, so we renamed it Cancer Care Wānanga with Patients in Whānau, and this would be our first of many. And I think going there on that day really meant a lot for us in terms of what healing looks like. When whānau get the chance to kōrero, and opening that space in a really safe and nurturing way. And I think that day we were able to achieve that. And we had different kōrero from our wahine, our tāne, and then I was doing the kai prep with my tāne, and we had the rangatahi with us, and we had their perspectives of their experiences. And so it was definitely Wairoa and whānau led. And then I just posed to pātai towards the end of the day. And I didn't know how, you know, I didn't want to make it seem like we're just here to take from you. I just wanted to ensure that actually we had the time with them, and we're sitting graveside with their tūpuna who had actually lost their lives to cancer. And we had the experiences of the whānau graveside. And I think that that impact and that kōrero is so powerful. And so when we start to traverse around the motu, specifically right now the northern region and Tamaki Makaurau and Te Tai Tokerau, we want to make sure that we take that taonga seriously. And our kaumātua said to us, the real taonga is what we take back to the whānau. And yeah, beautiful, beautiful kaupapa. And just the last slide, we'll just leave you with our beautiful whakatauki. Te peko o te mahuri tera, te tipu o te rako. Ngā mihi nui kia katoa. Kia ora. Any pātai whānau?
Yeah.
I'll do that. Yeah, no.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. I promise we're not waiting for the present. Actually, if you had pātai.
Anei, he taonga kia koutou. Next step. Oh, take that one. Thank you, notes. He rau aroha tēnei ki a koutou, no whai wā mātou ki te tākua hia tia tō kaupapa nui. Fabulous work. keep going. Awesome, great to see. Thank you very much for sharing that with us, and looking forward to some questions later. Bye. So we are still struggling to get more headed back online. Thanks to the technologies. So we're going to go to our next speaker, who I believe is online. Hopefully she can hear. Again, no Ngāti Porou and Ngāti Whātua. Shan.
Yep.
Shan. She's a professional lead for dietetics at Te Whatu Ora in Waikato. And so we're going to start moving into dietetics and rehabilitation space now of the Wānanga. We've just had some cool stuff about models of care. And so I'm going to, without further ado, I'm going to hand the mic over to you, Sian. Ke kona koe.
Ai, kia ora. Ngā mihi nui ki a koutou katoa. So am I just going to tell you to move, I don't know how to do that, move slides as we go, or?
I'll just move aside.
Oh. Okay. Yep. Yep, I can do it. Kia koe.
Kei te pai. Ngā mihi nui ki a koutou katoa, ko waio he uri o Ngāti Whātua me Ngāti Porou. That's my marae in Poutou there in Waikato, and Poutou is buzzing at the moment because they've just opened up a new wharf that they've had for 30 years. So business is going to be booming in Poutou, which for those of you who don't know is on the tiniest point out on the Kaipara Harbour. He mātanga kai taku tūranga mahi mō Te Whatu Ora Waikato, so I'm the professional lead for dietetics at Waikato. I've been in that role for about 2.5 years and been a dietitian for about 18 years, which sounds really long when I say it like that, and hopefully you can't see all my grey hairs that reflect that too. So I'm here basically, so kia ora to you, Nina, for throwing me under the bus. I briefly mentioned it there at this work in a meeting, and the next minute I'm here presenting to all of you. So I've had about a week's notice. So I'm just here to really present on some research that we've been doing at Waikato on malnutrition and some of the preliminary results and considerations for Māori. So if we go to the next slide. So Waikato Hospital is the only large hospital across New Zealand and Australia that doesn't have a malnutrition screening protocol, which is quite shameful. Without a screening tool, we have poor identification of malnutrition. So we, at Waikato, when we first started this project, we had 0.9% of patients that were getting identified as malnourished, compared to what we know is around the average of about 20% of inpatient that we've learnt from other research. If we can't identify who's malnourished, we can't treat who's malnourished. And malnutrition rates of Māori patients in hospital has never been reported before at all. Without the appropriate screening tools, that obviously leads to inequity. If it comes down to the judgment call of which patient is asked further questions around weight and their kai intake, or who gets referred on for a dietitian assessment, implicit bias within the system means it's more likely to be Māori and Pacific who are overlooked. You know, there is the perception that Māori and Pacific are always going to be bigger and you know, less likely to be malnourished. So we're also trying to raise awareness. So if the questions are not being asked, then malnutrition isn't really being raised as a concern for both health professionals and our patients coming into hospital. So it can be really undervalued, or the seriousness of it can be really downplayed. And we often hear from our Māori, actually all our patients, that who might have been trying to lose weight all their lives, that this, you know, they may have lost 10 kilos in 3 months, but yeah, I'm finally doing what my doctors or maybe my dietitians have asked me to do. And you know, it's great that I'm losing this weight. So we know that there's lots of reasons for having a malnutrition screening protocol. Before we tried to implement it at Waikato, we needed the data for a business case and, you know, the protocols and the resourcing, because we really didn't have any idea of how big an issue this is. Yep, next slide. I guess this just briefly, I'll go through this. So why is malnutrition important? So we know that it has a real significant impact on morbidity and mortality. So we know that there's delayed, you know, shows delayed wound healing and recovery, extended length of hospital admission, risk of falls increase, risk of pressure injuries increase. It's not nice for our whānau to basically have no energy because they can't get enough kai in. There's frequent readmissions, increased risk of infection. It influences the effectiveness of cancer treatment. So we know that losing weight, being malnourished is a big reason why chemotherapy is stopped for a lot of our patients. And then it just goes into the high cost and high utilization of our hospital resources as well. So just a brief, yeah, why is this? Why all the hoo-ha about malnutrition, I guess. Next slide. So just a little bit about the research that we've done. So we've done a malnutrition point prevalence audit on patients on eligible wards at Waikato Hospital. So that was just done in May. And this was to establish the current prevalence of malnutrition in Waikato hospitals in the adult population, in acute adult population. And we analysed this by ethnicity because, well, I pushed for this because there is no such limited research and understanding of malnutrition in Māori. Which screening tool was the other question that we wanted to look at with this research. So we kind of looked at the malnutrition screening tool, which is widely used internationally, and also the Inter-Eye acute assessment screening tool, both of which are used to predict malnutrition risk in comparison to what's considered the gold standard, and is kind of business as usual for dietitians in assessing for malnutrition, so the subjective global assessment. And we also wanted to have a specific focus on whether these would be valid for Māori, because there's not been any screening tools validated for Māori at all. So yeah, the SGA, just to give you, or subjective global assessment, is a non-invasive physical assessment that looks at fat and muscle stores. At the time when we started doing ethics and planning this research, the Inter-Eye AC, I'm not sure how many people are familiar with that, but there was a plan at Waikato Hospital to roll it out across all inpatient wards, which we as a dietitian profession didn't really agree with, and I'll go into a little bit more about why that was. And I know that there were quite a few other health professional groups that don't agree with this assessment tool as well. But because this was being planned to roll out with, we kind of got a lot of pushback from nursing for trying to introduce another screening tool on top of this one being rolled out. So that was kind of why we chose those two different screening tools to compare against the assessment tool. Yep, next slide. So yeah, basically this has been a collaboration with the University of Auckland and the University of Waikato. So we have we went through University of Waikato for ethics, for publishing the research, and then University of Auckland. So one of our student dietitians from there is completing this as their thesis as well. Yep, next slide. So just going through some of the preliminary results, and this may change once our student dietitian has written all of this up, but with the full analysis. So we had about 20 odd dietitians running around on the wards, doing our usual assessment, which included me, which was a bit of a shock to the system because I haven't been on a hospital ward since 2010. It's a bit of a refresh for me. So we had 264 patients on one day that were assessed in total. 71 of those were Māori patients, which was around 27% of the study, and so that matched the inpatient population on the day, which was quite a good achievement, I think. We had 39% of total participants were assessed as malnourished. 35% of our Māori participants were malnourished, and this generated around 61 new referrals to dietitians just from that day. So that was based on people who were assessed as malnourished but hadn't already been referred to a dietitian. So based on those 61 referrals, and then the percentage of patients that were malnourished, I think we can safely conclude that we're under-detecting, under-diagnosing and under-treating malnutrition at Waikato Hospital. So confirming, I guess, what we kind of suspected anyway. Next slide. So kai for thought. I guess some of this has, going through this research has, proposed things that for us to consider as a profession. Our screening and assessment tools are all developed internationally. So can we say that they're valid for Aotearoa? Can we say that they're valid for Māori? One of the big issues with the Inter-Eye assessment tool and other screening tools is that they're based on BMI. So that in itself creates a lot of inequity, and just really impractical to use because it relies on weights being taken on the hospital, which weighing practices can be quite, I guess, variable. Yeah. With the malnutrition screening tool, one of the questions, and the malnutrition screening tool was developed around 20 odd years ago. One of the questions that it asks, and there it is only 2 questions really, is have you been eating poorly because of a decreased appetite? So it's not holistic, and it doesn't consider access to kai, so it doesn't really take into account those social determinants of health as well. Yeah. Haven't finished yet.
Sorry.
And so another thing that, as I said, we've got patients who've been trying to lose weight all their life, and so they're really not concerned themselves, so they might not be forthcoming with that information if there's not a screening tool in place. And the other important thing that is that malnutrition is a concern no matter what your original body size. You can't live off your fat stores as well. Now, next slide. So I guess that's just a snapshot, and as I say, we haven't really gone through it thoroughly, and there'll be more areas for discussion and of the results that we get, and more breaking down of the results, probably by clinical area as well, clinical ward. But in terms of future research and development, so determining what the appropriate malnutrition screening tool is and using that for a business case for further resourcing and what needs to be put in place. That also includes the food service, what impact that might have on them. And whether we need to look at development of a screening tool specifically for our Māori population. And I guess this is part of a suite of projects, and so screening goes alongside improving assessment and diagnosis. That's by our dietitians as well as doctors and others who are doing the diagnosing. And also the intervention side of it. Now that we've got some preliminary results for malnutrition in Māori, It's about having those enhanced interventions for Māori as well, and that's looking beyond dietetics, and our, what our sphere is of impact in developing those bundles of care. So, kia ora, I think that's me.
Question, and I hope you can stick around for the wānanga session just after this one more speaker, I think it is. That's okay, cool, kia ora.
Cool.
I think I'm still having no luck with more huia, so we're going to move to Alexis. I'm guessing that's you. Yeah, kia ora. Okay, well, let's get that sorted out. This one.
It's not, yeah.
Start sharing first. I have activated the next question for some open-ended questions. Sorry. Yeah, no, I'll turn the camera back on. And then get that going. I'm going to hand it over to our awesome pediatric dietitians team, led by Amy and Alexis and Hannah.
Yes.
Yep. I'll let you guys go. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Kimi. Kia ora koutou, ko Amy Lovell, tōku ingoa. Like Sian, I'm Mātanga Kai, dietitian and senior lecturer here at the University of Auckland. I am talking on behalf of Alexis. She has a terrible migraine, so she sends her apologies. Alexis really is just talking about her PhD, which she is embarking on, and we are very lucky to have teamed up with Hana and also the Cancer Whiti team with regards to our mahi with tamariki that are affected by a cancer diagnosis and their whānau. So we are a small population in New Zealand, we know that, and an even smaller population of children who receive news that they have a cancer diagnosis. It is still a very important population, and when we look at the snapshots in 2021, we had 159 children under the age of 14 diagnosed with a childhood cancer. Most of these are in children under 5 years of age, and 1 in 4 of our tamariki who receive a childhood cancer diagnosis are tamariki Māori. We mainly treat here up in Auckland. 75% of our tamariki receive treatment in Tamaki Makaurau, and the other down in Waitaha, Canterbury and Christchurch. Our most sort of prevalent diagnosis is acute lymphoblastic leukemia. And this is a very long treatment pathway for a child. This can last 2 to 3 years. And our survival statistics for children with cancer are great. We are sitting at over 85% survival for our tamariki. And with that, the burden of treatment and the burden of survivorship, our tamariki are then facing long-term chronic conditions that we would like to help alleviate some of that burden with the work and the mahi that we're going to do here. So this is just an example of what treatment looks like. It's broken into phases, and it often happens very quickly. Often a whānau will receive a diagnosis and then within 24 hours they will start treatment. So it is a very big whirlwind and a lot of very, very intense feelings and questions, and trying to help understand how we actually support our whānau, not just the medical side of things, obviously is very stringent, but how we can add in some supportive care for that hauora gain, be it with nutrition, well-being, and also activity as well. So this enters prehabilitation, and this enters the relationship between myself, Alexis, Hana Van Wart, and Marta Seredni as well, and the Cancer Whiti team. Traditionally, prehabilitation is really about prepping a person, whether it's with their nutrition, whether it's with their physical activity, and also their well-being. So that sort of wraparound hauora gain for a patient before something big like a surgery for a cancer. Because childhood cancer doesn't allow for that, we start treatment very early. We're taking the principles of prehabilitation, so we are making our families, our whānau, resilient to the onslaught of challenges that they face through treatment pathway, taking that concept of prehabilitation where we
optimize a person before they have an insult like a surgery to hopefully allow them to bounce back after that surgery in a better shape in terms of not losing as much strength, not losing as much condition, and as Sian has highlighted, actually not becoming malnourished, which has those ramifications for cancer treatment in the future. For our children with cancer, we do know that we are faced by a multitude of different sort of burdens as they go through treatment. And we know that just focusing on one thing like nutrition is not enough. So we are partnering together to try and provide that wraparound care for activity and also nutrition and well-being. Why have we chosen prehabilitation? Because we want to build the resilience of our tamariki that are going through these very, very, very trying times, and for whānau. And we want to sort of capability build in terms of providing families with the skills to be able to navigate this in a way that suits them best. Often kai is one of the things that families can hold on to through treatment. And so we want to figure out the best ways to help whānau support their tamariki with kai, and also through movement and well-being as well. So Alexis has a very ambitious PhD, and I am one of those PhD supervisors that is like, well, we can do it all. So she is looking at trying to understand how nutrition influences things or may play a role in overall survival and event-free survival, looking at national data sets. We want to really drill down into the whānau voice. So it is doing wānanga, that co-design that's so important to give whānau a voice, those that are going through treatment and those that have gone through treatment, particularly focusing on our leukemia to start with. So in that, we start to design or co-design these prehabilitation interventions. What that looks like, I'm not sure. Maybe in 3 years we can come back and tell you, but hopefully that has that sort of three sides to it: that nutrition, physical activity, and well-being. And then very ambitiously, Alexis will hopefully pilot this in a very small sample of tamariki that have received an acute lymphoblastic leukemia diagnosis, and then sort of evaluate it to see how we can better it for that particular diagnosis, and then how we can adapt it for our other childhood cancer diagnoses as well. That's prehab in 5 minutes. Kia ora.
Nice.
Thank you very much, Amy, and Piki Te ora, Alexis. Share those amongst yourselves and everyone to Alexis. Yeah, thanks very much for an awesome talk and for very, very succinctly summarizing prehabilitation. Right, so we have 20 minutes to have our last wānanga for the day. It's been a long day already. Lots of thinking, lots to engage in and consume. Mihi to you guys on Zoom who have stuck with us all the way through. So yeah, so all of you who have spoken in that last session on the models of care, prehabilitation, if you could please come down to the front. We might need a few more chairs. Saw a few questions on there. In the meantime, while our group are coming down and getting organized, I have activated the last Slido question, and hopefully it's a bit of a reflection. You might have heard some cool stuff about matariki today, maybe from yourselves. Like, share some ideas. What are some things that popped out to you about how you can think about matariki values in terms of improving community engagement and collaboration and health, particularly in the cancer space. Hopefully that's working for you guys. Yeah, just with some cool ideas coming through. And I also want to make one cool point while we were just waiting for our last panel members. 2 of our panel members, or I guess through proxy of Amy and Hannah, are recipients of our fabulous Māori Cancer Researcher Awards, which are a partnership between Hei Ahuru Mōwai and the Cancer Society of New Zealand. I'm going to talk a bit more about that tomorrow, but shameless plug because we have Maira Ruka, of course, who was one of our first recipients, and Alexis has just started. And to all of you who have a say in funding, I've got to throw it out there. We're still the best in terms of stipend. So I'm just throwing that whittle out there. We pay a good stipend compared to a lot of other funders. So I'm trying to get all the other funders to lift your game. Okay, that's enough for that. So in the meantime, there's another round coming up this year. So if you want to do masters or PhD research and you need some money and it's on cancer and you're Māori, tono mai, have a go. Take the plunge. Without further ado, I'm going to, right, question. I did have a couple of questions that came up on, sorry? Oh yeah, Mike. Need to turn on the mic. Please, for both the folks on Zoom, wait, for the folks on Zoom, please do make sure you talk right into the mic and help you hold it down here. It's that's job.
It's pretty obvious that we need to have malnutrition screening. Everybody is having intensive screening. And that screening has to work for whānau haua Māori who, and the screening and treatment needs to work. And hopefully once we get some and we need to all include it in our next projects.
There's a couple of I've got a question here. Hang on. There's a couple of burning questions that whānau have put through on Slido. So they've used the app, they've used the technology. So let's celebrate them. Go you, Kia ora. Okay. That's right. So this is actually for the Whiri team, actually. What are the key implementation barriers and enablers from the Te Pikinga Waiora framework that you have taken note of for when you extend the Whiri model?
The one that, I mean, HPW framework, you know, there's kaupapa Māori, and then there's systems thinking, and culturally centered, community engagement. Yeah, all of those things come naturally to me as a public health physician and a Māori researcher and all of that kind of stuff. But the thing that doesn't come naturally to me is the integrated knowledge translation, but it's the fifth component of everything or whatever. So, but everybody has different things that they need to push themselves on, like, you know, chocolate's one of my weaknesses, and IKT is another one. So I don't do it too well, but and integrated knowledge translation is about involving the end users, including the funders of your intervention, right from the start. And that's what we're trying to do here today. Is we're trying to bring in a whole range of people. You know, we've got you guys from Te Aho here with us, and you know, all of the team tomorrow with some of the funds in the room. So yesterday we did something. And we had a one with the Whiri team and involved funders.
Yeah, so I think we're thinking on working with the enablers, those people components, particularly around co-design and effective whānau and defining whānau voice. And that's we've really anchored our project, our model here with that. But the integrated knowledge transfer is also an enabler within the implementation science. That's found in Te Pikinga Waiora. And that is a developing area as well, because it can always be done better. I think some of the limitations are around like cost effectiveness and having that sort of lens over what we do. And because we do it for the kaupapa, it's an area that we don't always integrate into our pre-implementation phase about looking at costing, what are we saving.
Does anybody know any health economists?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We need you guys.
So that's where the could be lots of time. Yeah, so that's where but that's where implementation science actually offers lots of tools and can complement the Pikinga Waiora model for co-design.
We actually do have another on site that's part of Te Ako Mātauranga, Paula Lorgelli. She's come back from the UK, so she's a health economist. Like she's committed a career to that, rather than George, who's doing lots of wonderful things. But that's actually come up a lot, and I've noticed that, you know, we're scrambling together for Māori-led program grants, and they're talking about where we could really do a health economist, and we're like, how do we get one? How do we find one? I said, well, maybe we need to build one. So how do we get these qualified health economists to actually start getting some PhDs through the door that have health economics?
Additional workforce as well as workforce development.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Building a curriculum that is around health. Yeah, absolutely.
You wanted to add something?
Oh, it's just a little point,
Well,
but it is really around the cost effectiveness and what we're using as a metric for quality of care and quality outcomes, and how we attribute the cost to that. So if we're looking at, you know, Māori health outcomes, those kind of frameworks, well, there are some beautiful frameworks that have been designed in the past by beautiful Māori leaders in that space, but for both implementation science and everything away with it, we would definitely benefit from having a metric, a quality metric that looks at costing and benefit based on what our partner experience versus, you know, the time saved in outpatient clinic. Yeah.
okay, wait. And I will go and carry on with you guys from the FIDI model. One question was, with the FIDI model, when you're communicating with the Cancer Society and Canteen, etc., do you talk with the kaimahi or the whānau in there to in their support groups? Are those groups that you talk to in the context of the FIDI model?
We have connections with the Cancer Society at multiple different levels, but we actually haven't got any projects in those support groups. I think it's an obvious place to go. Yeah.
So we, part of the model here is to, and we just need to get funding for this, but we've created a piece of work that looks at a portfolio. So it's basically, it contains things like Te Awa in there, and it's basically, the role of the portfolio is for patients and whānau to empower them on their journey right from the get-go, to say, this is the roadmap of what it will look like, these are some tools, this is the language, these are some questions that you might want to ask, and really that portfolio will be intentional about your team, your hospital services team have to engage with that portfolio as well. So you've got all your information on you, it could be looking at either digital or in paper forms, but part of that is,
We want to get it funded.
Yeah, we're trying to get it funded.
the Cancer Society has already kicked off with.
The Cancer Society is doing related with, but looking at Ellen up there in the pews, I think, you know, the Te Awa model would be perfect for developing the portfolio. And you can just link everything onto that beautiful network.
So there's also a blood cancer group as well, so we've liaised with them as well around the same model of care, but you know, part of what we get, a lot of the feedback that we get from whānau is that there are lots of informal support groups for the people Māori and Māori whānau, and so how do we try and make that more visible and easier for whānau to tap into a community and support group that are already up and running, because sometimes it's the experiences of whānau who've been through that journey before that you trust more and more, you know, and yeah, like there's issues with that. Not everyone's colour is the same as the same in the other party, but it's really important to have those spaces where whānau to share information, share resources and support each other over time, that it's not just when you finish treatment, it's ongoing.
Okay, yeah, I was going to send it down that way because I'm going to set up those fellas down the end here with their models of care before for the next couple of minutes. Unless there are any other questions? So obviously you're doing a whole bunch of awesome mahi for the northern region. If another region was trying to do this, they probably are in some degree. what would be some of the lessons or barriers that perhaps you figured out that, oh, I wish we'd done that, you know, as a nice piece of advice that could help them smash through that barrier more quickly or whatever? New gems.
I think just to say, how the mobile they want and times more than they go, so it's connected with other regions. And so those are the opportunities that we get to kind of share the model and you know, while West Coast area, they have very similar geographical makeup as we do. And so they can immediately see where it could work for them. Yeah, so I think those connections have started. Yeah.
Great.
That should be part of the funding, right? Is, you know, funding when you're doing something fabulous, funding to help others implement that sort of kind of approach. So you can fund for that.
And I guess like, and building on with care and making sure that we are anchored to that, I guess, that national landscape.
Yeah.
Particularly that more going to recovery. And I feel like that can support, I guess, that universal approach or, you know, applicability to the team and being able to support.
I guess the other question I had, I'm just looking, I've got a couple of questions. I know there's a couple of questions on malnutrition. I just want one more on this implementation of models of care. Question I had around navigators sort of as well was, I think that the answer is obvious, but like we clearly need more people. What are the skills like in all of these sorts of areas, right? In order to actually do all of the stuff that we really want, we need people with the skills. Are there particular skills that we need? Are there particular areas? I know we need more nurses, I know we need more doctors, but are there other areas that aren't necessarily clinical that could help with getting the system moving? Or like, what is a navigator? What skill set do you need to be an effective navigator? Like, are there opportunities for young people to look at other career paths that maybe don't get into a clinical pathway, but they could still do the heck out of that navigation working with whānau? So I'll throw that out there to everyone, if you can.
No, you can't have navigators without developing the system.
Yeah.
It's
both, it's twofold. So that was a really good point that was made this morning around navigators, you know, like, shouldn't we be addressing the broken
Yes,
system?
yes,
But
yes.
actually, it's and we can't wait for the system to be corrected. You know, it was very promising 2 years ago, and we all know how that went, but, you know, so we can't wait. So the navigators, I think there's two approaches. The first is a lot of our whaiwhare that are working on Waikato, they come with an understanding of the community. That's our main criteria is, you know, do you understand your community, where have you been brought up, and you don't have to have LinkedIn networks, but there's key skill sets that the whaiwhare carry, because a lot of them are contacting whānau over the phone. It's not a face-to-face when they first see our patients and whānau, and so it's being able to listen on all levels, you know, it's just really trying to engage the patient and whānau and understand that you can't be direct, you can't just come at it with what you want and what you need and being extractive, you know. It's about forming a relationship first, and that comes first and foremost, always. Once that relationship builds, then things get easier. But you know, if we've brought up in the community or we've been around whānau, it doesn't even have to be my whānau. You know, just a cultural view and with whānau. That's the other key skill set that we find work really well. But the discussion that came up yesterday when we were presenting for the study model of care was around the need for accreditation for our whaiwhare and our whānau, because they do carry a lot of skills, but you want to standardize the skills, but you also want to give them a tool to really recognize and acknowledge what they are contributing within their journey. And I think accreditation is the next best step.
And you can't just throw navigators out there without the clinical team behind them and the system team behind them, because the navigators will come across clinical issues that they can't resolve. That's why the clinical infrastructure and the teams, the system team behind it. So anything the navigator can't resolve, they escalate to the nurse. Anything the nurse can't resolve, she escalates to the system team. And sometimes those systems are shared alike.
you know, really big gnarly things that take years to resolve, but sometimes they can be resolved in a couple of days, like funding arrangements, funding GPs, George.
I want to segue over to the dietetics thing. What George, after George's comment, so maybe hear their take. Sian, yours, or Amy, or Hannah. But do you have any reflections on that kind of workforce possible area? Okay, think on that while George has a go, maybe. Yeah.
Three things. Without putting too much pressure on Banataki, this is part of life skills and civics, which I think is really valuable for people to be receptive to learn about as they come through school even. Got to be careful because the stakes are pretty high when you're doing the practical classes learning about this. The second one on the systems redesign, which, as you say, we have to navigate now. But we redesign our systems as we go, and I think a big part of making the systems understandable is storytelling about them, how we tell the stories about it. And something that we're trying to do where we are, to Te Ora, community tree of life. As the regional cancer and blood service, that name being also Papua, is to think about different functions in relation to the structure of a tree, the food tree, and that structure is something that people find understandable, familiar with those kinds of structures, and so now you can map something like a tree, which we know about, in the outside world, you can map it to your system. And I think there's a general principle there, and I think it's the type of Matarama principle as well, which basically is a way of almost engineering systems so that they are understandable by relating the structure to things that we already know about. But the third thing I want to say for our staff is there's some values that we want to adopt, which have got quite simple sayings behind them, but if we adopt them, it's going to help a lot. And one of those people I want to say is any door is the right door. I think it's a very powerful audio for navigation. And once we own that as practitioners, then we're not going to be satisfied with putting a hand up and saying, that's not our thing. Actually, any door is the right door. I can see that you need to find the right place to go. I am the person who bears power here and will access it for you. Eddie Harty taught that as part of cultural safety.
Okay, we're running on time, so I want to make sure that our dietitians have a chance to say what they want to say. Please, did you have any thoughts on that? Otherwise, I can move to another question about workforce. If there's any reflection on that.
I suppose for us, the biggest barrier to malnutrition screening is an understanding of why it's so important. We don't have a protocol really at Starship. I find it very difficult to get it done in oncology. And so the money that Sean's doing is incredible to try and actually raise the profile of it. We do it pretty well in adults, but in children it's difficult to get buy-in across all of the wards. And so part of the work that we will do will be building it into Cancer City, Tamariki. And yeah, it sounds very clinical, but protocolizing it so that it's actually non-negotiable and that families expect it. So maybe putting it in the portfolio so that families understand the questions that are going to be asked of them and their child over the last X number of weeks or whatever, to try and understand, where they are right now. And is malnutrition something we have to worry about right now? We also don't really have screening for cancer. Malnutrition screening is quite broad, and I think there is a screening tool for cancer, but it doesn't take everything into context. So that point that Sean raised about have you been eating poorly, that doesn't take into consideration access.
Yeah.
I don't know, Sean, if you want to.
Sorry,
Did
was
you
that?
want to add?
Oh no, I just think with I'll talk about malnutrition screening, it's determining who's going to do it and when it's done, and having protocols around that, and having buy-in from the wider system, I suppose, into the importance of it as well. So if you don't have that buy-in, it does fall over quite easily. Yeah. And in other countries, malnutrition monitoring and screening is a KPI for all the hospitals. So that's not the case in New Zealand. Yeah.
I guess a couple of questions there's two parts that have come through. They're from different sort of lenses. One is there some clarification on what the definition of malnutrition is, and is that different for some kids, I suppose? And then I guess maybe the follow on from that, I don't know if it's the same kind of idea, but what are some high level descriptors of malnutrition diets in Aotearoa? And are there some clues that clinicians can ask about it? Like, I suppose they're kind of different questions that maybe are in their similar-ish ballpark. So, definition.
I mean, the screening tools have set questions, and they're sort of meant to be as few as possible, so it's not a burden to complete the tool every time a patient presents themselves to the hospital. I think we need to increase an understanding of the fact that malnutrition exists. It has the potential to exist in everybody, and that no matter how you're outwardly presenting to your doctor or your medical team, you still may have a risk of being malnourished. And I think particularly if we look at the lens of cancer overlay, cancer ruins Kai for people. And obviously Kai is very central to preventing malnutrition. And I think we get in this it's a horrible sort of whirlwind of sort of chasing our tails once we actually start seeing a child being malnourished. It's very difficult to kind of catch it. So I think the awareness, the buy-in, and I think for us what we have to do is actually demonstrate that if a child does become malnourished, we see delays in treatment, we see those not on investment, we actually need the objective data, I think, to change some minds. So that phase one of the lessons of PhD is just this is actually what's happening to somebody and what it might mean for things like survival. Yeah. Because you can't argue with data.
Any comments from you on that one?
I guess yeah, there are definitions for malnutrition, and my issue is that I don't really agree with them. You know, the WHO uses BMI, so I don't agree with that being used as a definition for malnutrition. Pharmac uses BMI for as a malnutrition indicator for people who need supplements. I don't agree with that. So I guess the diagnosis tool that we use as dietitians is probably, I guess, a bit more holistic in that way. It still could probably be a bit more, but yeah, I guess there are different definitions of what malnutrition is. Yeah. And in terms of, I forgot the rest of the question. Sorry, I forgot the rest of your question.
I think it was signs for questions for a clinician to ask to get to that kaupapa, which,
Not just
I think it is being quite, you know, just having a kōrero about, you know, about Kai, and if you're struggling with it, if it's changed, those sorts of, it doesn't have to be too clinical. Yeah, just people will kind of, if you're talking about it, they'll kind of give you an indication of if they're struggling. Yeah.
Okay, well, we have reached 4 o'clock, so I'm going to let our fabulous group off the hook now, and we can go and have, there's one more session of networking in Kai, please, after this, so please do come along. I'll let you guys off the hook. So, okay.
We're just going to go high and that's a really good look into tile. And so into the environment and into communities. And so, you know, communities want us to walk far over cancer, but they're not enabled to do it. And so if we bit of a program that was going to support community to grow, help advise and share it with whānau me, especially with cancer or anything else, then that it's a really massive opportunity at multiple different levels for climate change, etc.
Yeah, the level and food sovereignty, but also the levels of the gut biome as well, because on the journey that we're really interested
Yep.
in looking further at that, both pre-rehabilitation wise, but also post-treatment and how we monitor that from a Māori perspective, what is the kind of we're going to be able to access that will help rebalance some of that.
So another 2 hours conversation. Just
Oh my gosh, yeah, we could have another really focused conversation. Okay, yeah, well, kia ora koutou. Thank you very much for patience, those of you who stuck with us to the end, especially online. Thank you very much, Sean. Thank you very much to our panelists for their contributions this afternoon, all the speakers. I'm going to do a quick karakia to close for the day, not to close the hui, because we are still in Wānanga, but we're just going to go and relax for a little bit, have a break. So I'm going to do a karakia with that in mind, and we're going to be back here tomorrow to hear another cracking team of national experts in lung cancer in particular, and breast cancer with Maxine. So things to look forward to, and then some other cool things in the afternoon with Boyd, Borton and co. So, yep, with that in mind, whakairia ake te kete kōrero ki te pautuarongo, hei tiki anō mō muri ake nei, kia wātea ai, kia tēnā, haumie huie. That simply translates, they're going to hang the basket of knowledge on the pautuarongo at the back of the room so we can collect it again tomorrow morning and carry on. Tēnā koutou katoa, go and have a go. Food has moved. Sorry, sorry. Food is no longer where lunch was. There's another thing going on. So it's going to be between the two big lecture theatres. So head towards the main entrance, and you'll see down sort of in between the two wooden panelled lecture theatres. It'll be in there. Okay. Please stay. Please have a drink.